Well, hello folks. It is an absolutely glorious November evening. I have the good fortune of having another chance to commit an act of aviation. If you've been following me at all, you know I'm fairly addicted to flying and fairly evangelical about aviation. And this is another flight in the Mooney. This is the plane that I am actually trying to sell with really no great desire to, but I need to, mostly because this plane deserves better, well, I shouldn't say better, but more flying than I'm able to give it. Give you a view around. I get to fly looking at views like this in this area. There's a reason they call them the Smoky Mountains. Anyway, so that's the view from here. This plane is one of the more efficient aircraft, especially for a factory-built airplane. If you want a really efficient airplane, either get a diesel-powered plane, which is pretty unusual, or get into the experimental market. There are a lot of planes in the There are a lot of planes in the experimental market that are really efficient, especially if you only want 1 or 2 seats. Once you get up into the 4-place market, even then, they can be fairly expensive and use a lot of gas. But for a factory-built airplane, Moonies are well known for not being gas hogs. This plane will cruise when everything is set perfectly. It'll cruise at about 145 knots, burning about 10.5, 11, maybe 11.5 gallons an hour, depending on your altitude, and depending on the weight that you have in it, and the outside air temperature and things like that. There are a lot of things that are involved. This airplane is not one that is really ideal if you don't have your pilot's license yet, because, well, for one thing, it doesn't have brake pedals on the right side for the right seat, and so no instructor worth his salt is going to be particularly interested in instructing you in how to fly, not how to fly a Mooney, but how to fly, if that instructor doesn't have access to the full range of flight controls. Kind of understandable. Anyway, this airplane has a 180 horsepower engine. It's the longer body of the early Moonies. There are 2 early body styles, the short and the long. The A, B, C, D, and E models had a shorter body. In the space behind the seats back there wasn't a lot of leg room. So Mooney stretched the body a little bit, gave it they tell me a 10 or 11 inches more leg room, mostly behind the front seats. If you're tall, it really doesn't matter. These planes in the front seat, you've got all kinds of leg room. They stretch your legs forward. You don't sit very upright. It's very much like a Porsche in that respect. The F and the G models of the earlies were the longer body, and then the F model, which is the 200 horse version, otherwise the same airplane, was modified by the Lopresti folks and got a different cowl and a bunch of little speed mods, and they were able to, with one person at sea level, wide open throttle, get 201 miles an hour out of that airplane. And so it became known in marketing as the 201, the Mooney 201, but it's the J model. So the same leg room, but it is faster and more efficient, fuel injected engine. This airplane could be essentially that if a person was to install the 200 horsepower engine into it. That's a fairly expensive mod. I have not done it, and it makes no sense at this point in my life for me to do it. But if you were looking for an airplane, if you were looking for a Mooney that you wanted a manual gear Mooney, when I say manual gear, there is a handle down here on the floor that if I pick that up and put it in its and rotate it up to its upright socket, the gear comes down and locks down. There is no gear motor. You are the gear motor. which means it's fairly foolproof as long as it's well maintained. And anybody who has a brain is going to keep their Mooney well maintained. There are those who don't. I am not one of those. So if you want a manual gear and manual flap Mooney with a longer body, and if you want the 200 horse, this is the one to buy to do that conversion on, because it is time to do an engine overhaul or an engine swap. And I get to fly by mountains that look like that. That's Unaka Mountain, I believe, or Roan Mountain, I don't know. I'm just out putzing around talking on my phone. Or my camera. Anyway. If not, you can overhaul the engine and it will be a fine 180 horse airplane. It will be not quite as fast and won't climb quite as well, but as the 200 horse version, but otherwise it's a great plane. This plane has been updated. You've got a modern glass cockpit, single tube Aspen with a GPS and a digital engine monitor, graphical engine monitor. There's a whole lot of money put into mods on this thing, so I'm going to lose money, I know that, but hopefully I don't lose too much, and hopefully someone who is looking for an airplane like this comes along and wants to buy it. It's been very much loved in the time that I've had it, and I think the right buyer will do the same. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this airplane for the evening. I'm going to fly around this pretty mountain over here and head back to my home base and land and go back to the farm. Y'all have a wonderful day. I will post this after I land, so I will entertain any questions that you have about Moonies, about this airplane, or about flying in general. There's very little I enjoy talking about more than aviation, with a possible exception of my family. All right, y'all take care.